So good morning, everybody. Last year, the MADE initiative was launched in Denmark with about 200 million crowns vouched from both the Danish government and Danish industry, with a motivation to try and keep manufacturing here in Denmark. Similar initiatives have been launched all over Western Europe. But with our very high salary costs and our high energy prices, it doesn't make sense to keep us competitive by not taking advantage of low-cost, high-volume manufacturing of the East. So the strategic decision was taken to focus on high-quality advanced manufacturing processes. But this alone will absolutely not secure our competitiveness. Missing from this MADE initiative is the design aspect. Now, thank you. I would say design is the great quality amplifier. So with good design, we can turn average process capabilities into quite high-performing products. But on the adverse side, if we have poor quality design, we are turning these high-quality advanced manufacturing processes into average-performing or low-performing products. So design is the major quality amplifier. And unless we have robust design processes running through all of our product development organizations, we will not be able to leverage this strategic initiative into high-quality manufacturing. So my name's Thomas Howard. I'm an associate professor here at DTU in mechanical engineering. I'm the head of the Robust Design Group, and welcome to you all to Robust Design Day. I'd like to start off by thanking four entities. Firstly, Novo Nordisk. Novo Nordisk put in quite a substantial amount of funding to get this robust design initiative at DTU off the ground, get a critical mass so we have a decent sized group where we can put on events like this and make meaningful research programs. So we're ever grateful to them. DTU for putting this thriving research environment together. Also one of our strategic partners, Valcon Design, who are actually putting up the sponsorship for today's event, and we have a speaker coming up next, or if he doesn't turn up in a few minutes, he'll be the third speaker. And of course, the fourth entity is all of you people here. We have quite a thriving environment, I believe, where we have a good mix between education, research at the university, and great industry involvement. And I really think it's those three factors we need to be able to drive this robustness and quality of initiative throughout our development organizations. So to introduce the Robust Design Day today, we are partway through my presentation, so I'm doing a little introduction to begin with, but then I'll go on to an idea about thinking about product robustness as a consumer index. We will then have a presentation perhaps from Janus from Valcon Design, then Steve from Jaguar Land Rover, Cern, GKN Aerospace, Anna Thornton, Dragon Innovation, and Ian Cox from JMP. The coffee breaks and the lunch will be served just outside here in this foyer. After lunch, we have an embodiment design workshop. This is a unique feature, I think, of these kinds of symposiums where we try to get you together to work on a problem, to share your approach to robust design methods, tools, and processes. And basically, that will start in the adjacent room, so we have that adjacent room in a workshop format setup. So after lunch, we'll be congregating in the room on the other side. We'll then have another coffee break, followed by Andy Parsley of Rolls-Royce, then Lars Gravesen from Lumagon, a Danish mobile phone company, Richard Söderberg from Chalmers and RD&T, and then I'll finish up with some closing remarks before we have a wine and beer reception just outside here again. You may have noticed that you have your name badges. We've been kind enough to put your names and organizations on it just in case you forget. And we have this number in the corner. The number in the corner tells you which workshop group you're in. So after the break, when you start your workshop, you'll go into that room and you sit on the table which corresponds to your number. On the back sides of your badges, you will see a username and a password code. Your username and password code is for the DTU Wi-Fi login. So if you'd like to get on the Wi-Fi, not that you should be doing that while you're enjoying all the presentations, of course you're welcome. So before I go on to my main part of my presentation, I'd just like to update you with a few achievements we've had in the Robust Design Group here at DTU in 2015. One of the things we've produced is an impact model. And this impact model is one of the bases for our research going forward, which is linking the bottom line profit of an organization to sensitive features within designs. So the idea behind this, we can say, if you have a non-robust design, you are likely to experience a series of symptoms which will eventually lead to non-competitiveness or lack of profit for your organization. And how are we going to use this for our research purposes? Well, whenever we create a tool, method, or process, we need to measure the effects in one of these symptoms. And of course, when we're using case studies, we want to find out which of these symptoms the companies we're working with are experiencing. Based on that impact model, there is a survey, a self-assessment form on robustdesign.org, which is our kind of international website. And here you can basically look at all the symptoms and evaluate how hurtful are those symptoms to your organization and how often do they occur. You fill in this survey and then you get a result page which looks a little bit like this. And this will tell you anything in this red region are your top most harmful factors that are hurting your organization that we believe could be solved by robust design methods and approaches. Of the survey responses we've had so far, it seems like there's three main areas that are constantly being repeated, which are delays to launch date and precision, milestone precision, and tightness of tolerances seem to be the ones in the red zone. We also did some research on requirement specifications and came up with a metric to say how complete are our requirement specifications. Now, quite often you'll see requirements being passed forward which may have a target value, may not, may be quite subjective or qualitative. They may not have upper and lower specification limits and may not tell you to what sigma value you need to keep between those specification limits. So we've come up with a metric to say how complete is the specification documents you're being passed. So a project may actually fail not because of the engineering competencies, but because the project wasn't framed well enough in the first place. We've also created quality loss enriched requirement specifications. And the idea behind this is to say, you may have a target limit and you may have your upper and lower specification limits, but it's also useful for the engineers to know how does the quality of the design change as you're between those specification limits? And perhaps more importantly, if we just overstep the specification limit, is there a steep quality loss or is it a gradual quality loss? And this may really have an impact on where we set our nominal values. We've also done some numerical research on proving Sue's axiomatic or first axiom, the independence axiom, showing how the negative impacts of functional couplings occur. So when we couple our functions of our product through single design parameters, we dramatically shrink our solution space, and now we have numerical proof of this. In 2015, we also launched the GMOD consortium, GMOD standing for Global Manufacturing Variation Database. The idea behind this initiative is to try and take real variation data from manufacturing lines and metrology lines. And then we can create a new standard and guideline for doing our tolerance design and analysis. So we have about 6 academic partners and about 12 industry partners onto the consortium at the moment, all looking at different manufacturing processes. And finally, with regards to the training and education side, we've, along with our strategic partners, Valcon, who own the 6 Theta trademark, we're pushing on with the Robust Design course at DTU 41632, which is now attracting 95 students per semester. It's becoming an extremely well sought after and successful course. And from this point onwards, any student who gets a 10 or a 12 on the course will get 6 Theta certification. We're also rolling out the 6 Theta Greenbelt certification, and I'm currently training the Honeywell Aerospace engineers in the design engineering and product development department to get their Greenbelt certificates in 6 Theta. So there's very much a drive to draw out this training for product development departments. We have 6 Sigma for production. We need 6 Theta for design. And finally, we also launched in 2015 the Mechanical Design Talent Program. Of course, we do have a number of courses here at DTU which help mechanical design competencies, but for those who are really interested in this area, perhaps not quite enough. So we've put this program together to put some extra special courses, to make some projects between industry and these talents, and try to enhance their education so perhaps we can get some top recruits coming out in the area of robust design and quality engineering. We also have a bunch of industry partners who have either signed up by expressing exactly how they want to contribute or said, we are interested in being part of it, let's formulate how to contribute. It's also a bit of an end of an era. Yesterday, Martin Ebro passed his PhD exam on applying robust design in an industrial context. So perhaps we can say congratulations to Dr. Ebro sat at the front here. And it's a bit of an end of an era for us, but luckily he's now working at Novo Nordisk, one of our major partners. But Martin was a co-founder of this group, so it's a shame to let him go. But every cloud has a silver lining, and we have a new recruit, Borla, who has basically had about 20 years of experience in the automotive industry at Tata Motors, comes with great experience in robust design quality engineering already. And he's going to be looking at the role of manufacturing in product robustness. So he's doing a fantastic job in this area, but he also comes with some other quite creative initiatives. One of them is what I'm going to present to you now, which is formulating product robustness as a consumer quality index. So if you turned up to Martin's PhD examination yesterday, and if you've seen any of the presentations from DTU up to this point, we focus on design robustness. And what we mean by that is we try to work out how sensitive a design is to variation, and of course make it less sensitive to variation. And this is very much focused in the design stage. It's used for the development engineers, and the metric is how sensitive the design is. So how much it amplifies the ingoing noise to the outgoing noise or variation. What I'm going to talk to you about in this presentation is what we've termed product robustness. And this is how much the product performance varies during its life. So here we're not just concerned about design, but also how responsive production is to the variation needs. So of course, a product with high robustness will have low sensitivity and low variation from production. The metric here is the product robustness index, and it's mainly aimed at the customer or consumer. So if you see this label on the board, does anybody recognize what this label is? What is it? Energy label, exactly. So if you have it on houses, fridges, appliances, products, we know now what energy or efficiency this particular product is at. These labels here, does anyone recognize these? What do they represent? Nutrition. I don't think they're so common in Scandinavian countries, but in countries where we have slightly larger waistlines, these are predominant on food packaging. This you might not recognize. Let's see if anyone can take a guess. Nope, but a good guess. So these are the tax bands which are set by the car emissions rates, or at least what the software says the emissions rates are of cars. So if you have the lowest emission rate, you pay £0 in the UK, and the highest rates you pay, of course, quite a lot of money. And there are also a bunch of reliability indices out there. This is one in the automotive industry. And this reliability index here encompasses a number of things. It basically says how frequent do these car models break down, and also what is the cost of repair once they do break down. So this table is ranking the the most reliable to the least reliable. And in this case, the reliability index is normalized. So the middle reliable company will have an index of 100. If you have less than 100, you are more reliable. If you have more than 100, you are less reliable. And that's how it works. So Honda, in this case, came out highest reliability. Now, there's a very nice case study from Grundfos. And I believe it goes like this. Maybe, Thomas, you can correct me in the break. But Grundfos were producing some of the best quality, most highest efficiency pumps in the world. But because it was quite a price-sensitive market, and what the consumers were really seeing was the price tag on the product, they were going, too much of the market was going towards the inferior, lower-cost pump products made elsewhere. So Grundfos successfully lobbied to make sure the energy or efficiency certificates were linked to every single pump. And the idea is then it informs the consumer, okay, you can buy this pump for cheaper, but it's an E or F rated efficiency rating. You take a Grundfos pump off the shelf and you get the highest efficiency rating. So it's a way to describe the performance attributes clearly to the consumer, and it's had a great effect. If we look at this mechanical timepiece, what evidence do you think we have on this timepiece to suggest that it is a quality piece of equipment? Any suggestions? Rolex. So the brand name of Rolex obviously carries a lot of weight of quality. Anything else? For almost the same reason. Swiss have a great reputation for mechanical watchmaking. Any others? 18 rubies is one. Rubies being the most expensive gemstone in the world. If there's 18 of them in this, it's probably a good quality product. It says chronometer. I'll come back to that then. Sorry, Carl.
The ruby is actually a hard bearing material.
Exactly. So in a similar way to the diamond is, it's not going to yield much. It's not going to vary much. So it's a very hard material. And the answer I was actually looking for was chronometer. And why? Do you know what that means?
It's a standard for how much you can grip.
Exactly. So you will see this mark on a number of watch products, chronometer, and it's basically a certification scheme for watches for how much the time can drift over a mechanical watch. It's also a certification scheme for quartz watches as well. Rolex have the highest number of chronometrically certified watches of any watch brand. So Rolex may have the quality reputation because they look nice, but it could be that they are just producing the most robust watches that we know. Now, the chronometric certification program is put on by a company called, or an organization called COSC, and they basically evaluate over a 10-day period how many seconds the watch, the mechanical watch, is able to either lose or gain. And if it's outside -4 seconds or over +6 seconds, it is no longer eligible for certification. If any day has a variation of more than 5 seconds, it's no longer eligible for certification. If it loses more than 0.6 seconds for every degree of temperature variation, again, it's no longer eligible for certification. And there's one other thing on this piece here, which is timed in 6 positions. Now, a mechanical watch is susceptible to load variation. Gravity acts on this watch. So when you take it off in the night, you put it down in your bedside cabinet, it will lose or gain time depending on the orientation you leave it on your bedside cabinet, because gravity is acting on the cogs. Now, this timepiece is so robust that in any of the 6 orientations, it will be or meet chronometer certification. Now, they don't call it robustness, but this is one of the best robustness certifications I've ever seen. So what we'd like to do is try to emulate this for all products. So once I started looking into this, I fell in love with mechanical watches, especially chronometer certified ones. I explained this to my wife and said, our anniversary's coming up. And I really think this represents what I do as a profession. And she did some research and said, Tom, these are more accurate. And actually, she's completely right. They are more accurate. And this just, the point I'd like to make from this is the certification scheme here is only relevant within that product brand, band or range. For electronic or quartz watches, that same certification scheme does not apply. So we need something that you can use to compare within your product range, but perhaps not so readily comparable between product ranges. So just to repeat, this inspired the kind of the question, can we make a universal index and certification scheme for product robustness? Some of the requirements for such a certification scheme could be that it is dimensionless. It allows comparison between similar products, as I just mentioned. It's suitable to, for any type of quantifiable performance. So we should be able to talk about how well it keeps time, or how much the power output varies, or how efficient the pump is. Any of these quantifiable performances, we should be able to certify in robustness terms. It should represent product betterment, meaning for the consumer, if the robustness level increases, the product gets better. And for the certification processes, we should be able to either certify it by measuring the actual products, or in some cases that will not be suitable, so we should also be able to measure it through simulation. Now, we've done quite a bit of work so far on an initial idea for how to do this PRI, Product Robustness Index. I can't go through it now, but I'm just going to give you a very small introduction to our line of thinking. We say the PRI for an entire product would be the average of the PRI of each of the functions within the product and the weighting factor of those functions, how important that function is. So the most important equation within our certification or our index is the PRI of a function. And we say that is the unit that the variation is in divided by the variation range. So for 20 millimeters plus or minus 0.25 millimeters, we would say the unit of variation is 1 millimeter, and the variation range is, oh, I've actually put 0.25, it should be 0.5 mil here because it's plus or minus. So it would equal 2. Now the variation range depends on two things. If we produce a product and we produce 1,000 of the products, it's the variation between each one of those units. And it's also dependent on the variation within that single unit through its life. So if we see two items here, item A is produced closer to the upper specification limit, item B slightly lower, and they both vary through their life. If we measure any of these items at any point in their life, the maximum range we will have is the start point for this item and the end point for this item. So our variation range is this. And that's what gives us our PRI. Now, as I said, the idea behind the PRI is to compare products within a similar category. So we could compare the PRI values for all fridge freezers. And we could say which are the most robust fridge freezers. And we could do it for hand drills. But we couldn't say, based on the PRI, the hand drill is more robust than the fridge freezer. It doesn't really make sense. So what we'd like to do is, eventually, is to say, we put each of the categories in order. And if you have the highest PRI in your category, then you get perhaps a 6 Theta product stamp for the year that the stamp was made. And if you have the lowest PRI in your category, you get a 0 Theta stamp. So when the consumer, dependent on, doesn't matter what product they're buying, if they saw this stamp, they would know that this pump performs consistently throughout its product life more than any of the other pumps within its range. If they see it on a fridge freezer, they know that the energy consumption and the cooling rate of the fridge freezer will be most consistent over any other fridge freezers within its brackets within the year it was certified. So this kind of Theta scheme is the communication point to the consumer. So this is kind of why I'm telling you this, or one of the reasons I'm telling you this is because we'd like to know whether you think it's an interesting thing, whether it can enhance your product range. If you're an industry partner, you could work with us by submitting products for us to try and index, for providing samples and perhaps assisting with some of the analyses and the testing protocols. And our academic partners, and we're streaming this live, so hopefully some more are watching in the international community. We would like you to also review our certification scheme to perhaps improve and enhance it. And when we set on one, if we try to produce a PRI for one pump, we'd like some other academic partners to do exactly the same for another and see whether we get comparable objective values for both. So with that, we have time for maybe 1 or 2 questions, but thank you very much. Go ahead.
Yeah, you focus on, I mean, mass production and high volumes, of course, make a lot of sense in the statistical world. Have any focus on low volume, not mass production design?
That's a good point. I mean, if it was a single one-off product, you could potentially fine-tune it to be extremely robust. It may still, during its use phase, tail off. But there's no particular reason why even a one-off couldn't be certified through this. I don't think it makes that much sense in very low volumes. But in principle, this could work across volume ranges. Any other questions? Walter?
I noticed that you took the average of a number of functions, so it would be an advantage to have a large number of functions, of which most of them are easy to fulfill. So I think there's a little thing there.
Okay, that's our first good academic critique. We do also have the weighting factors. So if you have a large number of irrelevant functions, they will have such small weighting factors, they don't contribute to the mean very high. So that would be the kind of normalizing of it, but it's a valid point. And I don't think companies are going to start adding functions into their product just to get a better PRI score either. Okay, yeah. Okay, well, you might be right. We'll look into that. I will take one more question. Rasmus?
The PRI, is that considers anything with dose and time? Maybe also
That's a very good question. So we've only presented here the very highest level of the kind of granularity. But actually, when you double-click on this and you go to a level deeper, we'd like to say how robust it is to temperature variation, to ambient conditions and humidity, to time, to loading, to all of the variation factors. And the idea behind this, if this is a business-to-business product, perhaps you're buying a pump to integrate within a larger system. Maybe you don't care so much about the overall PRI value. Maybe you care about how robust this particular pump is to temperature variation. So that gives you a bit more granularity and the consumer even better decision-making power with regards to what type of consistency they want from their product. Okay, I think we'll have to move on to keep time, but thank you very much.